Hello and welcome to Kessel Fun, the official podcast of the Star Wars speculation subreddit. I'm your host Sam, and now I'm going to let my fellow co-hosts introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Johanna.
Hi, I'm Luke.
Hi, I'm Vivi.
So, to start things off, we're just going to discuss some of the events that have happened in Star Wars this week and that are important to the speculation community. We have a few headlines. I wanted to start with the deleted scenes. I'm going to go through them all and just, relay our quick thoughts on them and just a quick discussion.
Let's start with the deleted opening scene. I actually really loved this deleted scene. I breaks my heart a little bit that it wasn't in the movie, just because it's such an interesting opening to the new movie. And one of the things that struck me about the new movie was that the opening was pretty plain vanilla. There weren't like any really striking visuals in it, and that's apparently explained by the fact that they deleted out what was a pretty clever idea that scene of the beginning of the movie. The basics of the scene are that you start with the classics, starfield and spaceships, and you pan down until you see what looks to be a planet, sort of a white planet with a hazy atmosphere. But then they pan down further, and it turns out that that's Finn in his Bacta suit recovery apparatus, and he does that part of the scene where he sits up and cries out Rey, and that was such a good piece of footage that they repurposed it a little bit and changed it up so that it had the hyperspace background and used it later in the film, but they did sort of lose that cool pan down entry into the movie. So
yeah, Ryan went with more classic Star Wars opening with starships and the whole fleet. It would be more interesting to open with Finn waking up, and I do remember lots of posts on our subreddit about how the movie is going to start, and that was one of the most often cited ways.
Yeah, it's where they left off with Finn, like he was just one-track mind with Rey, and it would have been nice to sort of continue with that mentality into Finn's mind. But I don't know, I kind of like the way TLJ started out.
Yeah, there are two things to consider here. First, if Finn wakes up in the very first scene of the movie, what is he doing through the skirmish with the First Order? Is he just sitting there? Because if he does, then it is better to let him wake up later on when he actually has something to do. And I kind of get why Ryan wanted to do it for the pacing reasons. Starting off with a dramatic zoom in through the fleet to the planet just gives us this feeling of intensity that the Resistance fleet is going through. Like they are running away from the First Order, they are evacuating, and that's
a really good. I hadn't thought of it like that.
There was one nice thing about eliminating that as the beginning of the movie, I think, which was that I sort of liked the first line of the movie is I think we're not clear yet, which I thought was kind of a cool opening first line.
Clever, yeah.
So you get that by removing Finn's scene.
One thing I did really like about the scene, though, and it's not necessary, but I did kind of, and I've noticed this with a few of the deleted scenes, where it kind of, the lead into other scenes kind of makes more sense when you've actually watched these deleted scenes. There's a scene, I think it's right at the end of this deleted scene. Poe talks about the fact that the First Order ships have arrived, and that's the reason why they can't evacuate the last of the transports. So that's the reason why Poe has to actually go out in his X-Wing and confront. So the next one is Paige's gun jam. It's not really a necessary scene again, but it was a nice, I guess more Paige is nice, but I suppose it wasn't necessary. It was just a nice little quiet moment.
Yeah, if we're cutting down a 3-hour movie down to 2.5-hour movie, scenes like that with characters that don't really need that much of development have to go. Even if they're cool looking or, it's a nice little character moment, something had to go, and Paige had to have her bare minimum.
Yeah, I do agree.
I loved it. I loved when the TIE fighter was blown up right there in front, and it was pretty nice. But I can see how it would be just one more frustrating thing about that whole move.
One thing I did actually like without that scene is Paige is kind of like looking out, kind of in shock. In the actual film, she's looking out in shock because of all the destruction that's going on around her, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
In this one, she's kind of looking at it in shock just because she's blown up a TIE
Oh.
fighter, and it doesn't have quite the same impact for me.
I kind of agree with you that it's taking it out actually has a stronger impact on the overall start to the movie. I love seeing more Paige. That's great. But if you had to cut something out, it does feel a little extraneous. So, I was fine seeing that one go.
The next one is actually probably one of my favorite deleted scenes that have been taken out of the movie, which is Luke kind of having this moment of reflection, I guess, and kind of like kneels down in his hut in his bed, and he's kind of just this silent moment when the music's playing.
Right after he tells Rey that he's not coming with her, after she...
Right.
Yeah.
And you can see inside his hut.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite scene for one little reason. It's because it's not in the movie, and it's one of the, I think, 2 deleted scenes here that really get me going, because I don't get why this was cut.
He said he cut it, right? Because they found that they wanted to bunch together stuff and cut less between the A and B stories, right? That the film was working better to have more on the island, more with the Resistance in longer segments. And so that was why it was taken out. I think it's a little hard for us to feel that difference without seeing how the original cut went. But I would say I did think it was an awesome scene. I wish it had stayed in. When I saw the original movie, I didn't really understand the cut with Leia. I like that little scene with Leia where she's, contemplating things and looks sad.
Yeah, and this scene gives us context for that.
I just really love the moment where he's looking out through the little crack on the door and he meets Rey's eyes. I thought that was really powerful.
I think it was just a powerful scene in general. Yeah. And I am sad that it was taken out, because it's kind of like it says so much without any character saying anything at all.
I agree.
So,
he looked
one nice thing about it too
too,
was that it
so much
turns
grief.
the perspective earlier in the film to Luke's perspective, right? Because if you don't do that most of the early part of the film, you don't really understand what Luke is doing. It's all from Rey's perspective, from the outside, from her banging on the outside of the door.
Exactly.
So many people talking about this movie talk about it from Rey's perspective, so they see Luke ignoring his friends, ignoring all of that, and this scene tells us that he doesn't ignore it. He feels it all. He does grieve.
Yeah.
But
he's so torn apart by Han's death,
it really tells us that what he's doing is not some selfish need of hiding, but it is a sacrifice.
Of course.
I'm just wondering if it was cut out because because Rey is our POV character.
Yeah. So he may have wanted us to feel towards Luke more like Rey does.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
rather than being
you're saying that it would give away too much, you think, or was it too
almost
big?
Yeah?
Okay.
In the sense that he wouldn't want us to think of Rey as oh, you don't get it, you don't get the bigger picture, when we're meant to be seeing things from Rey's perspective. So,
I would say that in the beginning of that movie, she spends a lot of time chasing behind him and having the back turned towards her and stuff. And that does sort of ultimately create some momentum when she finally sort of breaks and chases after him and knocks him down and yells at him. It's sort of all these built up scenes that are from her perspective of him turning away. And so inserting some stuff from his perspective does kind of undercut that. So I guess it's good in that way.
I know, but so many people were confused about what was going through Luke's mind and heart. I think it would have helped, but I don't know. On the other hand,
you could say they should be, as in that's the intention.
Yeah.
You should think,
true.
This is Luke Skywalker? That's exactly what Rey thinks. In another deleted scene, she says that she believed in this legend and she was wrong, right?
Yeah, so I think if it was cut for that reason, I think it was a good move, despite it being a really, really great scene. The next one is there's a scene between Poe and Finn, and it's very maybe quite reminiscent of the scene at the start of Empire Strikes Back with Leia and Han. Maybe not quite having the same connotations as that scene, but it's very, very, very similarly shot.
First thing that popped in my head was the title, because I think it was not much of a sewer, and I remember so many people thinking that it was referring to the fact that initially, before Rose was written into TLG, Poe was supposed to go with Finn on his journey to Canto Bight, and so many people thought that not much of a sewer meant them literally going into a sewer.
How funny.
Poe and Finn together, and that was the scene, as if they shoot some of those scenes before Rose was in the picture. So that was my main takeaway from that scene. Though it was a nice moment between Finn and Poe, and I wish we had more in the movie. I mean, their buddy friendship was one of the strongest suits of Force Awakens, and I wished we had more there too.
Definitely.
Well, maybe we'll have more Finn and Poe in 9.
I just thought it was really sweet how Poe sewed up his jacket. You know?
Yeah.
It was very.
Although I did actually kind of like the
I love that.
the part at the end where it kind of shows the arrogance of Poe, where he was like, I was busy saving the entire fleet, and then like the next scene is Leia slapping him and saying you're demoted. Like I think that was a kind of a better run-in. Then the next deleted scene is and I've noticed there's a running theme here. It's cutting out Finn's scenes, I think, and I don't know how I feel about that, because I know a lot of people have said that Finn didn't get quite the
he got the short straw
service. Yeah. I really like the scene with him and BB-8. BB-8 shows him the image or the recording of Rey, saying goodbye to him.
I thought that was actually a nice scene because not only is it more Finn stuff, which I also am disappointed that so many of the deleted scenes were Finn scenes, but it sets a really strong starting point for him, right? Yeah. On transforming from sort of this personal interest to larger interests.
Right.
It gives him a strong arc, and it makes that more clear in the film. I think that arc's still there, but this scene would have helped with that.
Yeah. The next scene then is the nun party scene.
Oh, I just loved it. The music was awesome. It kind of reminded me of old Celtic music, maybe Irish.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it was nice. I understand though. I think why they cut it out.
Oh really? Why do you think?
Well, it was a bit confusing. The first time I watched it, I didn't really understand the lesson in it. But,
I think Brian has said that wasn't the third lesson.
Right. I did read that it wasn't the third lesson.
Yeah,
but,
and I don't think it was. So
right. But when they started waving their little instruments around in a circle, telling Rey to do the same, kind of dance with us. For me, that was saying you have to kind of go with the flow sometimes in the Force.
Oh
yeah. Just join the party, and sometimes you shouldn't impose your warrior status on people sometimes so much. But
right. Interesting.
I don't know.
I thought it was a sad scene to lose just because Daisy's performance at the end was really great.
Yeah.
She was really upset, and that's the
true.
bit about that the legend of Luke Skywalker was something that she believed in. She delivered really well, and it's a really important theme in the movie, and so it was nice to underline it in that film, in that film clip. But I do think the whole thing did actually make Luke look a little bit too much of an unpalatable character to some extent, right? He was sort of mocking her, which I think was probably going a little bit too far.
Yeah,
it's fine for
I agree.
Be suffering because he isn't able to help his friends, but it's another to have him sort of delight in somebody else feeling foolish. It felt a little bit out of character.
Yeah, I mean, I can somewhat agree with that, but I think I really did like the end of that scene where Luke's just kind of standing there alone, and the music's kind of playing, and you kind of do feel a sense of sympathy for him. At least I did anyway, where he's kind of realizing that, maybe that he isn't doing the right thing, and the new characters such as Rey are kind of schooling him and putting him in his place. But I think that I did kind of like the lesson of what he was trying to say, which is basically the Jedi can only act when they're in balance, or if they can.
That's interesting wording, because all the time the balance was painted in a very positive light in Star Wars. Balance was the one thing the entire saga was pointing towards. But here, when Luke says that a true Jedi Knight wouldn't act if he couldn't maintain balance, and that would mean letting others be hurt, that kind of tells us that
Right.
maybe there's something, that there's more to this balance idea than we previously were led to believe.
Very good point.
Yes, I
Very
agree.
good point.
It was a bit of truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it was a bit of a loss to lose this scene too, just because I suspect it fed into the following scenes a lot more effectively, right? Because right after this scene, I think you were supposed to have Luke, have feeling really terrible, and then Rey feeling really terrible, and they're very at odds, and it really drives Rey into Kylo Ren's arms, essentially, right?
Right.
Because she's kind of done with him, and she's angry with him, and so she's going to turn to Kylo Ren instead. And then he's feeling terrible, and so he's going to go off and think, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I need to connect with the Force, and so he does that, Force connection with Leia, and so it gave that maybe a stronger connection.
Right. I definitely agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The next one, I'm sure it's everyone's favorite, is the extended Fathier chase.
I'll say this. I like the Fathier chase in the movie. I like the entire Canto Bight sequence, and I like the pod racing scene in the Phantom Menace. And just as with the extended pod racing scene in the Phantom Menace, there is a point after which entertaining, fast-paced scene becomes tiring, and extending the Fathier chase would have caused the same effect.
I agree, and I think it was a good reason to cut it down, so it wasn't quite as long as it was going to be.
Yes, those are my thoughts exactly, Luke. Thank you.
The next one, its majority of it is Finn's scene, but it does kind of start off with Kylo standing on the bridge. It's kind of reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back again, actually, where Vader's kind of looking out onto the stars, or into the stars, but he's kind of watching Rey appear in a little coffin. So that was kind of a nice entrance to that scene. But then we have the Finn kind of, well, it's kind of like, the one thing I really did like about this scene was it gives that element of tension I don't think the movie had too much of when Finn was going undercover.
Right.
And I really liked that kind of like, it's like we're so close to being caught. I didn't like it, and no offense to Tom Hardy, I didn't like it as soon as Tom Hardy showed up, but I'll get into that. What do you guys think?
Was this is the one where Finn tries to smooth down her curls, right? I thought that was so cute.
Yeah.
I love that moment.
Yeah, I was sorry to lose it because it was a lot of cool Finn content that went by the wayside.
Yeah.
Right, but they did did go a little bit overboard with Tom Hardy there. The idea of it, of Stormtrooper recognizing Finn and all that stuff, was fun and should have been kept. However, maybe toned it down a bit.
Well, I just don't know if it makes sense for the story, because I mean, I know it hasn't been too long since Finn defected, but would they not? The thing that confuses me is I could buy it if none of the troopers, if the First Order was trying to keep it under wraps, that a First Order trooper had defected from their military, right? I could buy that, but then the whole kind of later on in the movie when they're doing the whole ceremony of execution kind of thing, and you got all these stormtroopers standing round.
Yeah, and it kind of just goes completely against The Force Awakens, where the first time Finn meets another stormtrooper, he just says, "Traitor!" And we get an awesome fight.
Yeah, exactly. So
where was Tom Hardy's traitor moment?
Well, exactly. Tom Hardy,
Also, another thing about the bit with Kylo watching Rey arriving.
Yeah.
I like that isn't in the movie. I liked that. Yeah, I like it when that Rey ships her to the supremacy, and she doesn't know what to expect. She's just basically just putting herself in this coffin and off I go, and then she arrives there, and then out of smoke comes Ben Solo, and she's like, you can feel that she's so happy that he came to see her, but then he immediately just walks away, and stormtroopers arrive, and
with handcuffs. Yeah. Okay, the next one really short scene, but I did kind of like it. It was the scene where Rose bites Hux on the hand.
Man, Hux just can't get the break.
No, you really can't. You really can't. I think it was one of those scenes that wouldn't have hurt to have been kept in, but he did take it out.
See, it seemed a little extraneous to me. I'm not sure we really learned anything more about any character from including it.
Except people like to shit on Hux, basically.
Yeah, he gets beat up plenty in this movie.
Yeah, we could get a cut of TLG with just Hux getting smacked around, thrown around, beaten.
I don't know. I just felt so sorry for Hux this time. Did anyone else?
Yeah.
You felt sorry for Hux.
I did. Just from the very first scene, like when Snoke just like face plants him on the. It was horrible. And
you could argue you might deserve it.
I had more compassion for Hux.
Oh, we're gonna get a Hux redemption.
It's certainly hard to watch him face plants. I just listened last night to the director's commentary on the movie, and Rian Johnson said that the stuntman who took that fall broke his nose when he did it. And so Rian Johnson said every time he watches that scene, he flinches.
See, Johanna, keep it going, and we'll start hugs for Hux.
No,
trending.
it's just oh god. No, I felt for the guy. I really did, Yeah, I mean, he even gets made fun of, by Poe, and then everyone is laughing at him. I don't know.
That's
it was awful.
Precisely why I can't see Hux as the main big bad of Episode 9.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all you do is just feel sorry for like this kid who is, I don't know. It's pitiful. It was pitiful for me.
He's a pitiful character, I will admit.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a bad guy, Jack.
He's a bad guy.
He's really, really bad.
Hey, that's the message of Star Wars, Feel sorry for bad guys.
I just felt bad for him.
Right, and then we have the Finn versus Phasma scene. Does anyone want to talk about that?
Oh, that's a weird scene, because it would have been so cool to have it, but it was shot weird. There were technical reasons I can see why it was cut. But Finn pointing out to Phasma that she, in her moment of trial, she basically just, caved in, turned off the Starkiller base shields. And that's something that many people hated about her in The Force Awakens, that she did that. And here we see that, it's a huge thing that she did that. It tells us a lot about her character. She is a coward.
Well, the one thing I did really like about that scene is it kind of does show that the stormtroopers, like Finn, have that ability to kind of go, oh, wait a minute, what is going on here, and kind of think for themselves a bit, and it's showing that they're not.
I thought that was great about it, and there were bits of it that I liked, where like when she shoots all the 4 stormtroopers, the way that's cut together, I thought was kind of awesome. But I did think that his speech was a little awkwardly long and tilted, because like, why would she stand there while he talks
that's a good point.
about her? It just didn't make that much sense on that level.
Vivi, don't you know you don't interrupt monologues?
That's the unwritten rule of Star Wars.
And it was nice that she got her hand. Was it cut off or blasted off with that thing?
I don't know. I couldn't really catch
He
that.
just strikes it with that.
Yeah, it was kind of knocked off. I think that was great to see, just because, for the speculators to see that, because I think Bothan Spy had said on leaks that she would lose her arm.
Oh, that's right.
Right, and so when I saw the movie,
Skywalker special.
Yeah, when I saw the movie, I was like, where is the, missing arm? And you're right, like, we didn't get a limb removal, and that's disappointing. But it turns out that was deleted.
We kind of did. There was a limb removal and a torso removal later on. So.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, actually, he loses both his arms, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And then the very last deleted scene really is it's a very short one again, and it's just Rey and Chewie arriving to the Battle of Crate.
I don't think it was even them arriving at the battle. I think it was just when Luke was being blasted, and they just were flying around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
okay.
it was just unnecessary.
It wasn't needed at all.
Yeah,
it wasn't
threw
needed
off the
at all.
pacing. Like, we are focusing on the fact that Luke Skywalker just took the whole First Fleet force by himself, and now he's being blasted.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Chewie and Rey. Nah.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and I'm glad it was cut.
Yeah, but the way Chewie and Rey entered, the crate battle was just phenomenal. It was perfect in the movie.
Yeah.
They hate that ship.
Yeah, true.
She's like...
Yeah, they really do.
It's like coming and shooting. I like this thing,
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Very Star Warsy.
And I think that wraps up the deleted scene talk. So, the next news topic is... was it like a... like behind the scenes kind of thing?
Yeah,
where Luke
on Twitter, I think.
And Luke says to Rey when she knocks him down, you've chosen the dark, or you've opened yourself up to the dark side for a pair of pretty eyes.
Well, it was huge for a lot of reasons. First of all, Luke knows that Ben has a pair of pretty eyes. That's nice of him to hear. Did we ever hear anything nice said about Ben from Luke? That was it.
No, I guess that was the first thing, and it was cut.
But it does confirm that, at least from Luke's perspective, whatever Rey and Ben's thing had some romantic connotations. Well, there were some, at least, feelings of attraction involved, and Luke sensed it.
And the reason why I'm kind of glad it was cut is probably to do with the fact that it's kind of it kind of paints Rey in an almost like negative light, and it kind of paints the fact that she would go after Ben to be a little bit less than what she actually is doing it for.
Right. Rey wants to bring this great hero back to the light so he can defeat the darkness, and now it's about pretty eyes.
Well, I think it is about that, but I also think it's about the kind of emotional connection that they did actually share, and it's not so much a kind of like, oh, I think he's attractive. Let me, it's a bit more than that. Right. So I am kind of glad it was removed.
Yeah, it kind of trivializes their connection. Right?
Yeah. Also, the way Luke said it, it was weird for him to say it when he's lying down on the ground like that. Maybe it was the delivery. I mean, Mark was awesome and great all around, but everyone has a bad take, and I didn't really much like that one.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Then there is so Ryan was in an interview. I don't actually know where the interview was, but he was in an interview with Mark Hamill, and
it was at South by Southwest.
Actually. Oh, it was. Okay.
So,
okay, great. Yeah. Thanks for that. And he gets asked about he's talking about the hand touch scene, and he basically says, it was the closest thing that Star Wars movies ever going to have to a sex scene. So pretty big words.
Well, woohoo! No, I am really excited about that. Like, there are always discussions about directors' intentions when designing characters' relationship. Any word of clarification on that? On one hand, it does strip away that ability to the possibility of speculation, because it is a confirmation that this one interpretation is correct. On the other hand, it just gives us so much about these characters. It paints that whole scene in such a not only intimate but don't want to say sexual, but sexual.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it because I even after the movie came out, I think I and probably you guys and other people out there continue to have conversations with people about the authorial intent of the movie, right? So even though I look at that and say, oh, there's a lot of attraction between those two characters, I still have people, who want to argue, well, yeah, maybe you can see that, maybe that's your interpretation, but we don't have any proof that there's authorial intent behind it. And I mean, Ryan had already given us some confirmation of that before, right? When he had that fan say she was a Reylo fan, and he said it's all in the movie that I think was the first real time that we had confirmation of authorial intent, but a double down on it here I think was nice as well.
And then the next bit of news would be, so Daisy Ridley, I think it was on Facebook Live, Daisy Ridley was having an interview with Andy Gutierrez, and Andy Gutierrez, I think states that, is it a detriment to Rey's character that she would go after Kylo and, see light in people? And Rey goes, Daisy Ridley goes, well, no, I think it's, in that moment he was redeemable, and she thinks that it paints Rey in a good light. So
I thought she fielded that question well. I guess that's the main thing I would say, right? Little bit tricky. I mean, I certainly have been, in a speculative sense, an advocate for Kylo Ren's redemption since my first screening. So I have no doubt that that's going to happen. But I think sure. They want to be a little bit cagey about it, have a little bit of suspense about it. So I think she fielded that question in a way that said, hey, there was this interesting moment. It is a real thing. It is a possibility, at least it was a possibility in this moment in this movie. But she didn't go all out and say, "Oh yeah, we're totally redeeming this character," right? So it was a nice compromise in that regard. Leaves it a little open for us speculators to argue about for the next couple of years.
Right, especially since Ben's fate can be so complicated. It's hard to talk about it in simple terms like redemption and light and dark, since he's a character that kind of transcends it all. So
yeah, I mean, it's all about like that choice that you make in that instant, So if she says in that moment he was, redeemable, then it's pretty much reality. We all have that one choice we have to make to either do the right thing or do the wrong thing, right. I guess.
Definitely.
The thing with Ben is he thinks he's doing the right thing. He really firmly believes that. So
I don't know. I would say he often thinks he's not doing the right thing, though. Actually, I mean, I think both in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, he's spending a lot of time trying to convince himself that he's doing the right thing. That happens in The Force Awakens a lot.
I don't know. That's interesting. But I really believe that he, sort of has, I don't know. It's interesting because there's a duality there. Like he sees himself as a monster, but I don't know, like he feels like he has to do damage first or something,
Like doing the wrong things for the right reason. That's what he's thinking.
Yeah, that's how I was going to put it.
Okay.
Well, I will say that I think The Last Jedi is so much about stories that we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And the uses that we put the stories to.
Yeah.
And I do think Kylo Ren tells himself a set of stories about himself, right? I am a monster is a story that he's telling to himself, and he's trying to use that to move himself forward. And it's not really working out for him.
Right. So, Kylo Ren is a story Ben Solo tells himself, right?
Correct.
Well, because he saw, Snoke as his guiding light, and if you have a guy like that telling you that this is the way it has to be, it's like he has all this blind faith.
Right. Well, he'd pretty much been failed by every other mentor figure, be it his father, his mother, Luke. And at the end of the day, the only person that he's ever felt that he could truly rely on was Snoke, because Snoke's been feeding him all this BS,
Oh, I don't think that's
all kinds of things.
Is that true? I mean, I don't think either in TFA or TLJ he seemed like he felt great about his relationship with Snoke. He feels a little bit trapped in that relationship, right? And you can sort of see that in the throne room when Snoke tosses him around and tosses Rey around. You sort of see that maybe he started this relationship and now he's kind of stuck in it and he's not sure how to extract himself. The thing I always found in The Force Awakens is that he felt caught between his parents and Luke and Snoke, and he had nobody he could trust. And then he finds this girl, right, who is very similar to him and is also isolated and lonely. And I think my impression was always that he felt like maybe she is a way out for him.
Right, but I think I'm talking more about the reasons why he kind of like turned to Snoke in the first place. Not so much, I think Snoke probably revealed his true colors to Kylo Ren once, he had him under his grasp. But I'm thinking, the reason why Kylo Ren or Ben Solo ended up going to Snoke was because every other mentor figure he had kind of, in his eyes, failed him. And then it's like, well, where else can I go other than Snoke? And
and like The Force Awakens, remember that that scene where he's looking up to him like a puppy dog or something, and he's like, I just need your guidance, to Snoke. And then I think in this last movie, The Last Jedi, is when, I don't know, he saw something like truth, like when he was.
Well, I think Han's words to him, kind of struck a chord. I think kind of
that's true.
Forced him to kind of use Snoke in a different way. And I've read somewhere, and I can't remember where it was, but I know it was something official. It was basically stating that Snoke was pretty much done with him by the time of The Last Jedi. By the end of.
Pretty much. He said that he was going to decide his fate after Skywalker was killed and all of that, but he was pretty much done.
I think that kind of put a strain on their relationship.
I when I was watching the movie recently, I was struck by the fact that to Rey, Luke, she feels like Luke is turning his back on her, and I think in this movie, Kylo Ren also has that same sense at the beginning with Snoke, that Snoke is sort of tossing him aside. So they both have their mentors turn away from them, and that's going to drive them to. So there's a little bit of subreddit news. So we just crossed the 20,000 subscriber line as a subreddit, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I think it's been pretty close that we've doubled in size in the last year.
I think it's fair to say that we now have more subscribers than Anakin Skywalker's midichlorians, and that's very
there's some really striking numbers, I think, too. I mean, the subreddits, was created, I think, just after Force Awakens, so it hasn't been around that long. But in December this year, during the Last Jedi release, we had 4 million page views for the month, and we had 430,000 unique visitors. And right now, I think we have about like 36,000 page views a week and 6,000 first-time visitors every week. So the subreddit's grown enormously, and that's very exciting, I think.
It is, yeah.
It's mind-boggling,
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next segment of the podcast, which is the kind of like the main feature, I suppose, and that is the speculation segment. So each week we're going to be choosing a certain post by a member on the subreddit, and we're going to be discussing that. But tonight's one's a little bit different, I think, because we've actually got two. They're centered around the same topic. There's an argument for and an argument against raid training new Jedi students in Episode 9. Luke, do you want to summarize the against argument?
Sure. So this one was posted by sopiehh. And she basically talked about how many people are expecting a huge gap between Episode 8 and Episode 9, after which Rey will pretty much just jump into the mentor role and start training her own Jedi Order, basically. And against that line of thinking, they say that, first of all, it would be pretty weird to have that kind of time gap, which would allow Rey to gain enough experience and training to really be ready for such role. It would rob us of character development that we could see in that period, as we could see in case of Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. We pretty much ended up with entirely different characters after a 10-year span. And secondly, Rey is completely untrained. Besides what she got from Kylo and what she just kind of figured out on her own, and the texts she got from Acto from the Jedi Temple, she cannot read them. That's what the novelization says.
Oh, okay.
Of course, it can be retconned, but it gives her nothing. So with all of that, for her to become a teacher of a new generation of Jedi Knights by Episode 9 is a stretch.
Right.
And that's what sopiehh is arguing.
The argument for was posted by TheFiveStarMan, and he makes a number of points, or they make a number of points, one of which is that, it's said in the movie that she has everything she needs. So this idea that she needs more training or that she needs to read these books is possibly irrelevant. She has the necessary things she needs to know and understand the Force. She doesn't have to do what, Yoda tells Luke what he had to do in Empire, which is to unlearn what he has learned. She's coming in with everything that she needs, a pure heart. She can start now. And then I think that this person also says that she's clearly been shown to be very naturally gifted. And the two movies so far have advanced things very quickly, right? So the speed at which things are moving seems to indicate that maybe she doesn't need a lot of time to start moving on to a new phase, right, where she's training new people. And that's kind of the basic gist of the argument.
Well, all of that, the whole thing about Rey having all she needs is a great point, but it's a great point about her own personal development. She has all she needs to become a fully realized Jedi Knight. But even Luke Skywalker, who pretty much in our eyes finished his journey by Return of the Jedi, had to travel for decades to pretty much feel ready to train new Jedi.
Yeah, and I think that the 5-Star Man, and I hate to put words in their mouth, but I think I've gotten a sense from their post, they would answer that we've seen that kind of story before, right? It would be they've been waiting a long time now to see a Return to the Jedi Order. We're how many? We're like 5 movies into no Jedi Order, and in this case, they really want to see the new Jedi rise, and so they're not up for waiting, for another 5 movies to see those Jedi show up.
Right. What I'm kind of, I don't want to say hoping for, what I think might happen, whatever fate may fall on Rey and Ben, we might not see a new Jedi being trained in 9, but by the end of it, if they're going to do a short epilogue or a little scene like Ryan did at the end of TLG, kind of showing us the hope for the future, we might see a glimpse of the hope for the rebuilding of the new Jedi Order. I don't think they will give us a new Jedi Order on screen in 9, because that would kind of have to dominate the entire movie, and we have so many things going on.
Yeah, and I agree. I just don't think it's right for the story to have Rey training Jedi. I think it would kind of detract from where it's meant to be going. I think if they could pull it off, I would be open to it. Her having Jedi, but I just think it's too soon.
I was just wondering, it occurred to me that maybe do you really think that we're going to go through those same steps, and the training and the Padawan and all that? Maybe it's just about opening up a new way of looking at things, and
right. So, if Rey redefines what Jedi mean for the future, then we might see new Jedi, but it will be something else.
It has to be something totally different, because basically what we have witnessed here are these orders that have just been reduced to ashes.
Luke already tried creating a reformed Jedi Order and it failed too, so 3 times the charm is not a good message for the
they're beating us over the head with no orders,
And maybe Kylo does have a slight point at the end of The Last Jedi. I'm not saying he's going about it in the right way.
I think he does.
Yeah.
I think there's
to be honest,
what he says.
Ryan Johnson did address that Kylo's line, saying that if you try to remove the past, if you try to kill it or bury it in order to create something new, all you do is become trapped by it. You are forced to make the same mistakes. You are forced to just fall prey to your own ignorance. But if you learn from the past, if you take what's good and learn from it, if you take what's bad and you basically try to fix it, then you have a chance of moving on with in a constructive way. That's why the Jedi, that's why destroying the Jedi and letting them go is not the way, but making them work, basically like Luke did at the end of TLG. Just Jedi as this inspiring symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. That is a good way for the Jedi to stay, and that's what needs to be the focus of the Jedi.
Yeah, it's just about accepting, change. And
to be honest with you, I think one of the reasons why I don't want Rey training Jedi in Episode 9 is because, not saying I never want it to happen, I just think that my kind of ideal ending is basically, I think a common theme with Rey, Kylo, and Finn is they've all been hurt and let down by what was kind of their family, if that makes sense. And they're kind of like been victims of the system, if you like. And what I'd really like for episode 9 to wrap up is basically them kind of banding together in a way, and kind of making sure that doesn't happen again to any other kids out there that were like them.
That's a great point, and I think it's really the strongest bit of speculation I've heard on episode 9, with the whole broken family theme and Rey and Kylo pretty much adopting kids like them. That's a really great idea.
I love that, Sam.
This is how it's going to work from now on with the whole post. Us choosing posts from the subreddit.
Right.
So, if you go to we do have a subreddit, which is r/Kessel Fun. That's all one word. There will be a topic there, and it's going to be labeled Star Wars speculation theory suggestions. So if you see a theory on the Star Wars speculation sub that you think, oh, I really want to see these guys discuss that, then please post it to that topic, because then we will see that, and it's not ensuring that particular theory will be chosen, but it's letting us know that that's what the listeners kind of want to listen to, and if we think it's going to work for us, then we'll definitely pick that. Can we just give credit to the authors of those theories once again, please?
Sure. So the Against Rey Training Jedi in episode 9 post was posted by sopiehh. That's SOPIEHH. So give her a shout out if you see her on the sub.
Yep.
And the pro side was authored by TheFiveStarMan, all one word. Yeah, go check out his post. It's interesting as well.
And we'll link their posts in the YouTube description. So if you guys want to check them out, give them a like, give them a comment, or give them an upvote, I should say. Then I'm sure they greatly appreciate it. Okay.
That's the best reward. Always the upvote.
Yeah, definitely. Of course. That's what we do it for. Right. Final segment is the community segment. Now, we can't really do much for this one this week because it's the first podcast and nobody knows about this podcast, really. So we can't really do what we would normally do.
Oh man, I thought we were going to talk about the community TV series. I'm bummed out.
Oh well, I'm really sorry to disappoint you on that one. But so this segment is going to be basically the way for the community and the listeners to kind of like get in touch with us and like ask us questions, basically. So if you want, we'd normally be answering quick fire questions, right? And if you want to ask us a question, you can either go to our Twitter, which is @KesselFun. There'll be a link in the description for that, or you can go to our subreddit, and there'll be a questions topic. You can ask us a question there, and we will most likely answer that. So that's how that would normally go. Another thing for the community we're going to introduce in this podcast is a Speculator of the Month award. You know, this is going to be given to a certain speculator on the Star Wars speculation subreddit who we feel is deserving of it by, you know, either posting a really great theory or just continuing to be an upstanding member of the community in general. And the Speculator of the Month will be awarded 1 month of Reddit Gold, and they'll be given their own flair, which, you know, says Speculator of the Month for the Star Wars speculation subreddit. So if you want to suggest a candidate, go to our subreddit, that's our Kessel Fun, and go to the Speculator of the Month suggestions and post their Reddit username and the reason why you think they should be picked. It's not a popularity contest, so we won't be basing it off upvotes, but, you know, if you give us their name and the reason for that, we can have a better idea of who we think deserves the award.
Can't wait for all the best contestants.
Yeah, no, exactly, yeah. So, with all that said, just want to thank you very much for listening.
Yeah.
If you want to get in contact with us, you can either go to our subreddit at r/KesselFun or our Twitter, which is @KesselFun. And see you around, kid.